Man, it's been a weird news day of sorts in Hearthstone. Up first, the expansion announcement was delayed by a couple days, so we're going to have to wait a little longer there to see what that's all about. It's a little sad to have to wait longer. People are really hyped about it from the Blizzard team, but a couple days won't kill us. But the other piece of news, and really the inspiration for this video, also started on Twitter with this thread from Baby Bear talking about what might be coming in the core set, and she's hoping for some Highlander stuff. And Pheno replied, "I'm cool with all the Highlander cards except Reno." And then Chalky and Cora, who are both Hearthstone developers, replied with these GIFs and images suggesting, perhaps Reno is going to be in the core set. I mean, honestly, I take these sorts of tweets as like 99% confirmation that Reno is going to be in the core set, because I don't think they'd like go out on a risk to build hype or expectations and then not have them delivered on. Now, there is an alternative explanation, like maybe Reno's going to be in the new expansion, since she kind of talks about the new expansion. But I think the real focus here was on core set and OG Reno. So I think we might be getting Reno back in the core set, which is intriguing because I was going to make a video today anyway talking about the cards I'd like to have return from wild format back into the core set, and my good buddy Reno was on that list. Here he is, the man himself. And yeah, Reno was one of the 10 cards I'd like to see back in the core set because, number one, I like Highlander decks. I think they create more diversive experience in Hearthstone. Essentially, when opponents playing with 30 cards instead of 12 to 15 often, because of copies, you get new cards, you see more things. There are more play patterns and experience that unfold because they're dealing with a larger pool of cards per deck. So I think it makes games feel a lot different in many cases. And if the Highlander cards are there to reward that build strategy for decks, I think it makes the game a lot more fun. I think Highlander decks are fun to play too because you have an inconsistent deck punctuated with these big fun moments, like Reno, of course, where you can heal back to full. I also think Reno is a pretty solid anti-aggro card, giving you that option. If you get to turn 6, you can stabilize a game and play for some more late game strategies. So all in all, Reno fits my desired playstyles pretty well, as does Highlander, and I think he'd be a good example of a Highlander card to bring back. Zephrys would actually make me a little more nervous. Zephrys was just so freaking powerful and so freaking good at finding those perfect answers, finding those lethal outs, finding that perfect removal card. Sometimes I worried he was a little too spiky when you drew him, like he could win a game all in his own right. Reno, of course, can too, but only along certain matchups, exactly versus like aggro decks specifically. But he still has a lot of weaknesses where Zephrys can be really good in pretty much any kind of matchup. So I think I'd like a card like Reno a little more than Zephrys personally, but all in all, Highlander is something I would happily welcome back in the core set and in the year moving forward. Another card I'd like to see is our buddy, the Dirty Rat. This guy is a fantastic disruption tool to help beat things like combo decks by pulling out their key combo minion from hand and disrupting their entire game plan. We see it used in wild format regularly for that role. Can also be decent against aggro decks again, actually, as that 2/6 taunt. You can kind of play at low risk, maybe to summon a 1/1 or 2/2 from their hand, and you get some nice upside on the Dirty Rat body, but primarily as a tech card for OTKs and combos, Dirty Rat is a great option to have. And then another card I'd like to see back is High Priestess Jeklik. Give me them wings. I want some discard Warlock action, and I really liked Jeklik as a discard reward because it wasn't too crazy from a tempo standpoint. This was more of a spiraling value card where you could get a bunch of these in hand and just kind of keep playing them, stabilizing off of the taunt and lifesteal, and I really liked that play pattern personally, just extending games a long time off of an entire hand full of Jekliks. And I thought that was a cool way to reward discard. So I'd like to see more discard commitment, payoffs like Jeklik come back in combination with some new discard synergy cards in the future sets. I don't think you can put quite enough in core to make it handy, but we just got like that Deathwing baby card, whatever it's called, from Nyxia's Lair that's got some discard utility. Give me a few more of those, pop Jeklik in, and I think we have a discard Warlock party waiting to happen. All right, next up is Deathstalker Rexxar, and I know this one might be a little divisive because there was a while there Rexxar felt really frustrating to play against, but hear me out. I think that was in large part because of Life Steal Beasts. If you remember, there was a long time where Rexar wasn't very good. Then we got Life Steal Beast with Vicious Scale Hide, and Rexar made sense because you could really stabilize and grind people out because you had some life gain to help you extend games for a really long time. Currently in standard format, there are no Life Steal Beasts, so I don't think Rexar would have the same problems and risks that he had back when he was really, really good in the Hearthstone meta. So he would still be an infinite value card of sorts, but a little bit more susceptible to burst damage, which I think would really help counter him in modern day Hearthstone, because there's a lot of burst damage, obviously. So what I think we get instead of a really powerful, frustrating card is a super fun card. Rexar still ranks among people's most beloved cards whenever I ask that question. They have really fond memories of this guy. I would personally like to play him some more in the modern era of Hearthstone with all kinds of new fun beasts to goof around with. So I welcome Rexar as long as there isn't a Lifesteal Beast. So next up's a card I'd say is not on many people's lists, but I'm going to throw a bone to War Druid Loti. We've seen some choose one synergy stuff popping up in standard format here and there, and I think this is just a cool choose one card. There's a lot of interesting things you can do when you're duplicating multiple choices for Loti. If you don't remember all her different versions, there's quite a mix, and if you even get all of them together, she becomes an absolute powerhouse sort of minion for 3 mana. So I don't think she would, like, you know, totally redefine the archetype or rock the boat too much. I think she would just be a good inclusion in this choose one world, and I think that's a space I'd like to see them commit a little more to. So tossing in Loti in the core set might just be that nudge that that archetype needs to make more sense. And then another card I'd like to see back, I think this one's on a lot of people's lists, it's Tess Greymane. This is the Burgle Rogue payoff I think we all love to play. We've gotten some Burgle Rogue cards that actually were a little too good with things like Wild Paw Knoll, but that rest of the Burgle Rogue package has a lot of fun baked into it, and I think you could have some potential if you have more payoffs. You got Contraband Stash, which is actually really good version of Tess that's much higher tempo and faster, but I also want that Tess for that little bit greedier kind of late game plan. Dump this on 8 and just get a million things out of it. Anyway, to copy it, pull it back to hand, those are shenanigans I readily welcome as well, because I want to play like 5 Tesses in a game. And cards like this have been scary in the past, not Tess specifically, but things like Shutterwalk, these kind of repeating effects that can just snowball out of control. Those have been intimidating in many metas. I don't think Tess has that problem because it's ultimately all going to be a random pool of cards, some of which can backfire, some of which just won't be all that impactful, because you can't really build a deck to guarantee that your Tess does something cool. You're just putting it all up to RNG. So I think she is a healthy version of these replay style cards that can otherwise be problematic. And that's why I think Tess would be so much fun to meme with, maybe even slightly competitive in some Burgle Rogue packages, but ultimately just a really, really fun payoff card for an archetype that so many people love. Next up is Jan'alai the Dragonhawk. I've actually got quite a few Rostacon's Rumble cards on this list, I realize. I think that's because Rostacon's left us all feeling like there's a lot of unexplored territory there. A lot of the cards just didn't make a ton of sense or didn't get played. I think Wild format saw some more love for Jan'alai with things like Odd Mage with hero power stuff. But for standard format, Jan'alai really didn't make much impact. But now we have this good hero power mage package that's solid but not oppressive or crazy strong. And I think Jan'alai might slot in just fine as a fun way to bring RENO'S Back as another big late game payoff card for hero power mage, notably way weaker than Mordresh, of course, but still, you know, could maybe slot into the puzzle there for hero power mage. Maybe not, honestly, might be a little weak. You could almost buff this one, I think, if you really wanted it to compete with modern day Hearthstone, but nonetheless, a card and some characters I would certainly welcome back to standard. And then this is, I guess, my meme choice of the video, but I just don't want to play. I don't want to play Hearthstone without Bandersmash. I love this freaking card because it can do so many silly things and crazy things, and you know, it actually could occasionally do broken things with Lightning Blooms because you could cheat out some just bonkers plays on turn 1. But Lightning Bloom's going away, so I don't think there's any really feel bad moments that come out of this. Any Battle Crown turn 5 can be really good, but I don't think it'd be so frustratingly, game-breakingly good that the high rolls would ever outweigh the fun potential of this. And there's a lot of low rolls, and ultimately, of course, not a great card. So would still, I think, mostly be a meme inclusion, but a fun one that adds some really great moments, some surprises and hilarity, and that's the sort of stuff I always welcome in Hearthstone. Oh my god, next on my list is another Rossicon's card, and I didn't even plan this. I just went through and picked out the cards that made the most sense. I didn't have a theme here. They were all going to be Rossicon's Rumble, but War Master Voon is another card I'd welcome back. I think we have some cool Dragon Warrior stuff happening. Kazakhstan can certainly be a frustrating part of that, but I don't want to punish Voon for Kazakhstan sins, because I think doing things like copying Onyxian Drakes in a control Dragon Warrior would be a really fun way to get some extra value, some extra bodies, and some extra removal as well. So I like value cards like this that just give you a lot of stuff to play around with, and I think for control warrior decks in particular, spending 4 mana to generate a bunch of extra removal and resources, that's a good exchange. Many of those decks are looking to fill mana in the early to mid game anyway. So I think Voon would slot in rather nicely into all the new dragon stuff that we're getting teases with Onyxia's Lair. And hopefully we get more dragons in the upcoming year as well. I feel like we've been a little light on dragons ever since Descent of Dragons in particular. So I would like this guy to come along and fully support a more mid-range to late game Dragon Warrior archetype. And then finally, I want to see Octosari back in standard format, and really just to exist as a low roll, evolve, summon random cards kind of punish. I love those moments where the opponent randomly generates an Octosari somehow on board, and you get to like mill their deck. And sometimes it's good. Sometimes they have an empty hand, and the 8 cards is amazing. Other times it really punishes them. But I love those highs and lows of randomly generating an Octosari. Now, unfortunately, Cenarian Ward would be like the main culprit here to punish with an Octosari on occasion, which is rotating. So this wouldn't be a Cenarian Ward kind of card, but there are undoubtedly going to be others and other scenarios where Octosari would pop up. And I think it's just really fun that the whole game becomes about Octosari the moment he shows up on board. Like, how can I use this to my advantage? How can the opponent use this to their advantage? How do I play into this guy? And figuring that out becomes a really great moment in games. And I like cards like that have that gravity and warp the game around them. So I don't think Octosari would get played a ton at 8 mana these days, but him existing would, I think, make the game a lot more fun. And there you go. Those are the 10 cards I'd like to see coming back in the core set to standard format this year. Seems like Reno is I'm going to say 99% thing. I think he's coming in one way or another. We're going to see some kind of Reno based on these tweets, but I'm curious what other cards you'd like to see return. What'd you think of my list? How bad or good were my ideas, and which ones would you happily welcome back to the world of standard format? Look forward to reading that in the comments below. Thanks so much as always for watching, and until next time, game on.